Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Percentages. Indiana Jones was a famous archaeologist and adventurer and a professor of archaeology at a college. But before he grew up to be all that, he was also an 8th grader in an algebra class, and he was finding it a little bit difficult. His teacher had put these problems on the board, all about percentages. 8 is what percent of 32, what percent of 30 is 6, what number is 12% of 25. Every time she put up a new problem, he found it more confusing than the last one. It seemed like they were all a jumble of the same words over and over, and he couldn't make sense of them. She had talked to him about which one is the whole and the part and how to calculate each different way. But he kept getting confused and he couldn't memorize all the different ways to manipulate the numbers. He was getting very frustrated because he was in an advanced algebra class. He had Princess Numerica in his class. He had Obi-Wan Kenobi, that was a pretty smart guy. Princess Leia wasn't having any trouble, it didn't seem like. It seemed like he was the only one that was really struggling in the class other than Chewbacca, who really was struggling. Well, anyway, he started to get very frustrated with these problems, and he started to think he wasn't very good at math. Maybe he should go to a different class or something. But he decided maybe he would talk to his dad and see if his dad had any ideas to help him. So Indy rode his bike home from school, and he talked to his dad, and he told him how frustrated he was in class, and he felt like he was falling behind. He said, "We're working these percentage problems, and I just don't get it. I'm not sure how to do them, and I'm struggling on my homework. I don't know what to do." And his dad said, "Indy, a few years back, I was exploring at some ancient Mayan ruins, and I came across this scroll that I have here in my treasure chest. I don't even know what it is, but it seemed to have some codes on it, and maybe this could help you with the problem that you're having." So they decided they would take a look at it. So Indy and his dad looked at this scroll together, and they weren't really sure what to make of it. It had a lot of the same words that the problems had at school, but they weren't sure exactly what this code meant. It seemed to be a code that was matching, like sometimes we see a secret code where the number 1 is an A, and 2 is a B, 3 is a C. This seemed to be matching the word is to an equal sign, an of to a times, what number to an x, and what percent to x over 100. Indy still wasn't sure that this was going to help him in class, but he decided that it was worth a try. The next day in class, Indy's worst nightmare came true. His teacher called him up to the board to solve one of the percentage problems. Of course, Princess Leia was in the back saying, I can do it, ask me." But Indy was confident that with his new knowledge, he would be able to do it. So he pulled out his scroll and decided to give it a try. Indy started to decode this secret message using the scroll that his father had given him. He looked at the 8 on the board and he thought, well, that doesn't need any decoding. So he just put an 8. Then he got to the word is, and he noticed that that was on his secret scroll. So he turned the word is into an equal sign. Next, the problem said, what percent? Well, he saw that on his scroll too. So he put x over 100. I'm giving Indy a little bit of help on the chalkboard. It's hard for Lego guys to hold a big piece of chalk. So 8 was 8, is equal. What percent changed into x over 100, just like on the scroll. We don't want to skip anything in this problem. So next, after what percent, he went to of. Of means times. So we put this times. Now some of you, depending on what grade you're in, might use an x for times, but when we get to algebra, we use a dot for times because we use x's for x's. All right, so 8 is what percent of, the only thing left is 32. So now he had an algebra problem. 8 equals x over 100 times 32. And he was actually pretty good at algebra, so he was able to solve this problem. He multiplied both sides of the equation by 100. So on the left he got 800. And on the right, when he multiplied by 100, it canceled with the denominator of x over 100. So now he just had x times 32, or 32x. He divided both sides of the equation by 32 in order to get x by itself on one side. So he got x equals 800 divided by 32. And when he was finished reducing the fraction and dividing, he found out that that was equal to 25. So the answer to the problem was 25. So 8 is 25% of 32. When we think about it, if we had 32 cents, if we had 8 of those pennies, that would be 1/4 of the total, which would be 25% of the total. So this answer makes sense. Now, Indy was pretty proud of himself for getting this problem right. And he was pretty excited that this new code that his dad had given him worked. But he knew that this wasn't the only kind of problem that he had. He knew that there were lots of other problems, and he wasn't sure that the code would work for them. Indy asked his teacher to give him another problem so he could try out his code again. So she gave him this problem. What is 12% of 25? It's a little worried. It looked like a stumper. The first part said what? Now he knew that is was going to be equal. He knew that 12% was 0.12. He learned that a couple years back. He looked at the secret code and he could see that of meant times. And there wasn't much doubt about what the 25 meant. We're shifting around just a little. But the problem was that what wasn't on his secret code map. So he was going to have to use a little bit of imagination. He did have what number on there, and he did have what percent on there. What number translates to x? What percent translates to x over 100? Well, when you think about it, what is, he figured that would be what number. So he substituted in x. Because it certainly wasn't asking what percent. It definitely would have said what percent if it meant what percent. So it must mean what number. So the equation that he got is what is 12% of 25 translated into x for what is turned into equals 12% to 0.12 of to times and 25 to 25. So now he had a pretty simple arithmetic problem to solve. So he had x equals 0.12 times 25. To finish the problem, Indy just multiplied 0.12 times 25, and he got x equals 3. This wasn't too hard for him. He had learned that in elementary school. He was pretty good at multiplying decimals by integers. He didn't have any problem with that. Then he stopped to think, does this answer make sense? He thought, well, if I had 10% of 25, I would move the decimal by one place, and I would get 2.5. So if 10% of 25 is 2.5, then a little more, 12% of 25, being 3, that makes sense. So he was okay with that. Indy's teacher put one final problem on the board for Indy to do, and Indy let out a big gasp. His teacher said, "Ha-ha, have I finally found a problem that you can't do with your code?" And Indy said, "I hate snakes." Somehow 2 giant snakes had gotten into the classroom and were now attacking Indy as he was trying to work problems on the board. Luckily, he had Princess Numerica in his class, and she had her sword with her. So she leaped up out of her desk, ran over, and started hacking at the snakes until she had removed them from the classroom and the class was safe for doing algebra again. Thanks, Princess Numerica. Now Indy took a deep breath, looked at the problem again, and suddenly algebra didn't look so tough anymore. It wasn't near as scary as a snake. So he looked at the problem. What percent? He knew what to do with that. What percent means x over 100? So he wrote x over 100. said, what percent of, he looked on his secret code and decoded of to mean times. Next came 30. You don't have to change that a bit. That stays 30. What percent of 30 is changes to equals. And the number 6 stays the number 6. So we got this problem. X over 100 times 30 equals 6. He wanted to get rid of the fraction, so he multiplied both sides of the equation by 100. So here he just got 30x, because the 100 canceled when he multiplied both sides by it, equals, when he multiplied this side by 100, he got 600. Easy enough. 6 times 100, 600. That's a really tall zero. The last step was just to divide 600 divided by 30. Divide both sides of the equal sign by 30. When you divide on the left-hand side, 30x divided by 30 just leaves x equals. Now to divide 600 by 30, if we were dividing 60 by 30, we would just get 2. But since it's 600, we're going to get 20. We'll get an extra 0 on there. So x equals 20. So the answer to the question, what percent of 30 is 6? The answer is 20. So 6 is 20% of 30, or it's 1/5 of 30. 20% means 1/5. 1/5 of 30, if we divided 30 into 5 pieces, each section would have 6 in it, so that makes sense. So the answer is 20. So Indiana Jones had solved all of these problems using the secret scroll that his dad had given him, and no longer was he afraid of these problems. He was still afraid of snakes, but he wasn't afraid of percentage problems anymore.